Hi, my name is Veli Ndaba, the neuroengineer. I'm someone who's very passionate about translating complex brain science into something practical, for leaders, for individuals, for teams, and for organizations. This is something that I never thought was possible for me. I'm just a boy was born in Soweto, and I grew up not really believing that greatness was for me. And I used to look around and saw people doing things, and I thought, maybe one day, maybe one day. But I wasn't so much convinced because when I look at people around me, there wasn't a lot of greatness. People were just living from hand to mouth, just minding their own businesses without really having so much hunger, for something bigger and better for themselves. And so that's the kind of background that I grew up in. And then I think having lost my parents at a very young age, losing, my brother, and I thought for me, it was the end of the world. And yet when I look back in retrospect, then I realized that it was actually the beginning of my life. And then I went on and I studied mechanical engineering, and then I did other, qualifications as well. And then ultimately I realized that I was very passionate about human behavior. That is, why people do what they do. What drives us as human beings? Because you see some people behaving in funny ways, and others are becoming great achievers. But I was wondering if it's something that you are born as, or is it something that has got to do with your mindset, something that has got to do with your focus, and something that's got to do with your thirst and your hunger as a person. And I kept on searching that. And then ultimately I found myself studying something and getting involved in things like brain science, something called neuroscience, because more than just engineering, where I was involved in designing machines, maintaining machines, and looking at those strategies on how to take care of the asset. But I became more interested on how do you apply that, using brain principles. So that's what got me into that space. And then when I left corporate in 2011, then I started developing systems and started developing, models and ways that people can use to better themselves. So it's all about believing that it's possible for you to do it. And for me, once again, it was just beyond just believing, but it was more about understanding the biology about you as a person and understanding how the brain works. And I came across a number of things. And one of those, which are called like the neuroscience groundbreaking discoveries, is the phenomenon called neuroplasticity. So neuroplasticity simply means that the human brain is not fixed. So when you look at the brain, it's not something that, is fixed, that cannot change. Like people used to say that you can't teach an old dog new tricks, which is false. So it means that the human brain can change in terms of structure, physical structure that is, it can change in terms of function, how you use it, and also it can change chemically. So those are all the possibilities. So you are not stuck where you are. The brain that you are born with, you can adapt it to different situations and different circumstances and different environments. Because when you change your environment, your life changes too. Because you change what stimulates your brain. And along the way, I found myself, authoring books. I'm an author of 5 books. So the first book is called You Are Born to Win. And then the second book is called Your Dream is Calling You. And then the third book is called Switch On, Your Personal Power. Then the fourth book is Set Your Soul on Fire. And then the last book, which is the baby of the family, of course. And this is the book that is entitled The Neuroscience of Effective Leadership. And this is such an important thing because here I was now delving more into science, into neuroscience, because I realized that what you really want to be, not really just everything that you want to be, but something that is embedded in you, you can become. So if you are able to put so much energy onto something that loves you. Because you've heard people say, when you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. But I'm saying, there's a possibility that you may fall in love with something that doesn't love you back. I'm sure you've watched someone do something that they love so much, but they're just mediocre in what they're doing. So find something that loves you back, and you'll become the best in what you do. So when I look at it now as someone who has authored 5 books, I do basically 3 things when you look at my day and you look at what I do as a person. I do keynotes that come with some motivational talks for organizations. I also do workshops, because you can do keynotes and workshops, or keynotes and talks, but also you need to do workshops to empower people. Then the third thing that I do is coaching. So I speak, I run workshops, then I do coaching, because when you want to change your behavior, you need to have a coach, because changing behavior is a process. It's not an event, but it's a process. It takes time. So you need to have a coach, someone who's going to guide you along the way, someone who's going to show you how things are done, someone who's qualified. I'm not just talking about a friend here. I'm talking about someone who's been there, who's done that, who've experienced something that you really want to do. Someone that can guide you, someone that will tell you what you need to hear more than what you want to hear. Because people that are closest to us, they tell us what we need to hear or what we want to hear, because they want to keep the relationship close. But when you have a coach and you have a mentor, this is someone who is a thought leader, someone who is authority in their field or in the field that you want to pursue. So those people or that particular person will be able to share with you some insights and help you really understand how is it like to get to the top. So that's basically what Veli Ndaba is about. And of course, I founded this company called Selves Technical Services. And with it as well, we've got the baby of the family in terms of that structure that is called Luminev Consultancy, where we empower minds and we engineer brilliance. And in that way, again, I've got something that we call the Veli Ndaba Foundation, where I get in touch with the youth, I get in touch with some people that need some coaching, people that need some, understanding of how to do things. So this is something that I'm growing currently, this Veli Ndaba Foundation, where we need to be able to get our youth and get those people as well that are victims of, of not knowing better, to get to understand that there's hope for them. It's not just about hope in terms of motivation, but hope in terms of understanding how the brain works. What can you do to ensure that your brain functions optimally? And I think that these are the things that are very important. And for me, I'm just so passionate about those things, because I'm not just talking about some fluff. I'm not talking about things that are just only motivational, but I'm talking about things that are based on science. Because we've got things like fMRI scans, we've got things like EEGs, we've got things like PPE scans that are able to see and explain human behavior in real time. You can see which brain region is involved when one is performing an activity. So that stuff is something that has never been known. So this is something that is groundbreaking, and I'm just so passionate about it. So when you talk about the CEO of your life, that is the brain, if you don't understand that, you'll be lost. Because when you understand how the brain works, you'll get to understand how to manage stress, you'll get to understand how to deal with anxiety, and number 3, you'll get to learn about how to deal with depression. Because depression doesn't just become depression overnight, but it's stress that has been accumulating over the years. And that anxiety, because we are chemical beings. And as a chemical being, it means that the thoughts that we have, they trigger certain brain chemicals. And these chemicals are the ones that drive our emotions. And we end up feeling this way. And we end up not even sleeping well at night, because you are flooded with these chemicals, especially that are linked to stress, like cortisol. So for me, I help people understand how the human brain works so that we can be able to manage it and we can be able to deal with things like change. We can be able to deal with things like peak performance. And when we do that, guess what? Your life is going to change for the better. So we're not just talking about things, some kumbaya stuff, things just to make you feel good, but we're talking about stuff and things that are meant to help you. I'm talking about practical things here. I'm talking about science. Science is something that has been repeated over and over again, and that is able to explain to us why we behave the way we do and how we reach decisions or we make decisions the way we make them. So, yes, this is Veli Ndaba here, your neuroengineer, transforming minds from mental darkness to mental light. Because in mental light, that's where our dreams are. Do you really want to live your dreams? And if you really want that, you better start to understand what drives you and how the brain prioritizes information. So you have the power within you. And someone spoke about these things in a very succinct way to say, when you become clear of what you want to achieve, you become unstoppable. And once you become unstoppable, then you know that the only way is always forward. So you've got what it takes to become the master of your destiny. So take it away.
Ralph Waldo Emerson said, if a man can write a better book, or preach a better sermon, or build a better mousetrap than his neighbor, even if he builds his house in the woods, the world will make a beaten path to his door. If you become so embarrassingly good at what you do, the world will come to you and give you what you want. And remember that you are not a mountain, you are a Mohammed. And as a Mohammed, you must go to the mountain. The mountain is not going to come to you.
To engage us further on our services, keynotes, workshops, coaching, and merchandise, visit our website velindaba.com.